Welcome to the Galen Trombley Show. You can find me on Facebook at Galen Trombley, on Instagram at Galen Trombley, and on YouTube at Galen Trombley. Spelling GaelenTrombley. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Galen Trombley Show. Welcome to episode 105 with Mr. David Coryer. Dave, that's it. Welcome back. I just told a little before we got on. I said we've already done the background. People know who you are. If not, go back and listen to whatever episode you were on with your wife and 3 or 4 other people. It was also the largest podcast we ever had at one time.
Is that right?
I think 5 guests, 6. I've had 5 people in, but that was I think 6 people that day or 7.
Right.
Which is good. So, and the only one of that group to beat you coming back was Kevin Patton.
Is that right?
And
he beat me. What do you mean?
Coming back, like he's been on the show twice already. I ran into.
I've been wanting to come back.
I know, and I told him I ran into Kevin. I'm like, Kevin, you want to do it? He goes, sure, I'll do it. And then he actually is also the only person to leave with a cigar from the show. So that was his parting gift. But Dave, welcome back.
I'm happy to be here.
That's it.
Let's go.
Yeah. So usually we just kind of ramble on. So first question I want to ask you, because this is a big thing for us. We have it right here to our right.
Right.
Now, part of this, so I'm talking about the golf tournament. I've had a bunch of players on since this tournament actually took place. A bunch of insight, a bunch of people saying, we like this. We think this should maybe not be changed, but we've all agreed that this is going to evolve. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest things, so we were kind of putting this on together, and you had reached out and said, listen, this For the Kids Charity Golf Classic. I mean, you reached out early on this. I think it was like the day of we put stuff out. I don't even know. It was pretty.
Yeah, I saw you on Facebook, and I think I said.
I'm sorry. Was it the promo video?
I don't even know what it might have been, but I just saw that you were involved in some kind of charity golf event, and I know this is going to sound weird, but I just feel like you're doing so well, and you have such a good presence in our community, and I feel like if you are spending time outside of work, which is very important to you, in any charitable type event, I'm in. Like I think I sent you a message that you had me at hello, right?
Yes, and then I think I responded back. If I knew that, I wouldn't have tried so hard. So
but I found out afterwards that you said let's have a conversation about it, and then I sort of did a little bit of homework and realized. First of all, I'm on the board of the United Way and have been for years. Mm-hmm. So I didn't even realize initially that that's what it was for. Right? And then my wife I think she still is, or was the past president of the Community Action Angels at JCEO, okay. Which is a charity that's near and dear to her heart because they're the ones who sort of do the backpack program for all the kids in the North Country. And so when I found out that it was an event that was raising money for both of those organizations, then I was really in for a penny and for a pound.
Well, so the funny thing was I didn't realize that. I meant the two about you both being involved with the organizations, but not really knowing what it was. Because then I'm laughing. I'm like, this was really. We started this a year ago as kind of like a running joke between me and Matt. We went and had breakfast. Hey, one of the things we've been saying, this was beginning of October, late September, early October. All year we've been just saying stuff like, well, it's just for the kids. Like that was like a running joke. If we were to come up with like a stupid idea, but we'll just make it for the kids. And
what does that really mean, right?
Yeah, like people would like it because we're raising money or whatever. So then we're like, why don't we just really do something? So it was late in the season. We had played a couple scrambles that year. Like let's do a golf tournament. We were at Campus Corner. I think it was like a Wednesday. And we said, well, let's try to put this together. And we went out, and we filmed this was last year. We filmed like the promo video that day within an hour of us finishing breakfast. Like that's how quick it was. Like, let's just go out and do it. Came back, and I don't think it was that week. I think it was either a week or 2 weeks after that. It was basically about 14 to 15 days we had to pull this whole thing off. And we raised $2,000. Me and him played 1v1. I used 3 clubs. He used his full bag. I absolutely smoked him, and that was so we won. And JCO was my team, so we gave it was like $2,100 last year to JCO.
Right.
So then this year, and Meg was involved last year, and I have a photo down there. She was a caddy last year. She got the Masters jumpsuit. Yeah. So we in Forest Edwards. So we had a good us four, we had a couple of girls here that were doing the filming and stuff for the video. So then we're like, well, let's grow this thing. So Meg got more involved this year, helping out. She's good at running this kind of stuff. And we were planning on, like, let's try to make it better. And we were throwing ideas. And then you literally came out of nowhere and said, hey, can I title sponsor this? And a lot of, like, we had, like, a wish list, which I think when you asked us, like, well, what is it? Like, what's the title sponsorship? I'm terrible when it comes to this stuff because I've never run a thing in my life when it comes to this. Meg's much better. She understands that stuff. She goes, well, there's usually tiers. I'm like, listen, got to be fair to Dave. He reached out. We're kind of like, pants around our legs kind of thing. We were totally caught off guard. And I, in my head, knew this will grow. And I'm like, we'll start getting sponsorships, like companies sponsoring this probably closer to maybe year 5. We'll do this for a few years, just kind of fun. And then we'll maybe get some real people like in maybe year 4, 5, 6. And then you reached out. I'm like, honestly, I don't have a number. Never thought about it. This is our wish list.
Right.
Dave can help out with that, and it can alleviate some of the costs of what we're getting or people out of pocket, because we want to make it something that the golfers could actually get into. So it was cost each golfer about $100 to get into the tournament. So you came on, very graciously covered a lot of the expenses that we thought, and it was funny, the shirts alone elevated this thing to another level, because like people,
they were great, right?
Yeah, and actually the shirts came out decent considering we never actually like wore any of the shirts to try them on. But the whole idea was like having the 2 teams, a red team, a blue team, and kind of make it like a real like team event.
Right.
And it just blew it out of the water because it was so. It ended up, we started adding elements of like a professional, but a higher end tournament. So our thought was a lot of this stuff, like, it was good. We would have raised money, but I think you came up, like, your company coming on elevated the legitimacy of the tournament, the professionalism of the tournament. And then I think going forward, our goal each year is obviously to increase this, but now we've already factored in a lot of things are done that we did this year. So I think each year we can just keep building on the momentum. So you were there early on.
Right.
I kind of did a bet. This is one thing I got to let Meg handle next year. I shouldn't have been on the saying like thank you for coming kind of thing. I need to do the rules, let her do all that. She's much better. I'm like, give me the golf, let her do the organization. But what was your thought from the little bit that you saw, and then obviously throughout the whole thing? Like,
well, first, what I think is so fun about organizations like this or events, I should say, is when you're growing up and you're living in this community and you're running a business in this community, it's so easy just to do what everybody else has done in the past, right? And it's not to say that any of the other golf tournaments or fundraisers or whatnot aren't legitimate and aren't successful or not fun, but I'm drawn to the new, and I'm drawn to doing things that are unique and different. And it's fun to see you and your friends and business professionals, I guess, in your age group, if you will, and I've got you by about 20 years, right? But it's fun to see you guys sort of like coming up and doing different things. And I don't know, for me, that's what should happen in a community. And I think that sort of energizes giving and energizes fundraising. I think the more that we sort of, continue to support the events that have been going on, but also be creative in the new events and running things and organizing situations that, appeal to us, appeal to you, focus dollars in a different way. I think communities can really do a lot of good that way. And so for us, for Elizabeth and myself, and at Coryer Staffing, it's not a ton of money to support an organization, especially in the first couple of years. But even as it grows, we're happy to continue to be the lead support for it, because it drives dollars to organizations that are meaningful to us. It's great publicity. We spend tens of thousands of dollars every year in situations like this. So if we spend, $800 this year, a couple $1,000 next year, who knows what? We're just happy to do it because, for all the reasons I just mentioned, it's it.
You keep going. Yeah, just tighten that right there.
Yeah. Here.
Yeah. There you go.
It appeals to me and it appeals to us, and I think it's just fun. Yeah.
So a couple things you hit was, one, it's fun. We never do a tournament like this. They're always scrambles, and I like scrambles. They're fun, hanging out with friends, but there's a difference. I'm not competitive at scrambles. Like I go even if I have really good golfers, I'm going to have fun. I'm not looking to win. I want to go hang out with 3 or 4 friends, or 3 friends in a scramble, and just have a fun day and just relax.
Right.
This was fun because we all had fun, but it was the only time of the year for a lot of us that, like, some people never have played competitive golf in their life.
Right.
And because of the handicaps and stuff made it competitive. But you could see, like, there was people really trying to win in this tournament because they're like, I'm not just here to have fun. Like, there's a couple people that were there to have fun, but even the ones that weren't super, what's the word? They weren't, major golfers or anything like that. Still in their head were like, how do I just get better? Because I don't want to, like, embarrass myself or completely lose or let the other team down. So every person that played in this tournament absolutely loved it. They all were, like, in it. And that was the thing. This was only really going to be pulled off if we had all 16 people really bought into the tournament aspect of a Ryder Cup format. And every single person they loved it. So not one person I've asked was like, hey, would you play in next year? Every single person, like 100%. Like, they're adamant, like, I'm in. And that was just cool because some people be like, yeah, I think I'll play in it again. Like, we haven't had any of that. Everybody's like 100% definite. We're also looking at, we know that this is going to expand. We're trying to find it in a way where we're not going to lose the format because we're not going to go to a scramble. We're going to keep the format because it's unique to at least the area with what we're doing. But as it grows, we have some ideas in the pot of how we want to grow this, meaning like it will be a very cool event. But the other thing that, like, I like donating money. You guys are huge donors of money, both business and personally. I mean, if the one thing I really like is things that affect the local community.
Right.
I've been part of stuff where they ask you to donate, and every cause is worthy. I mean, there's stuff that, but when you start getting to like the national level stuff, I think it's great. But I always look at how much money can I just dump back into people locally that need it? So I really focus on to me the local fundraisers really draw more out of me than, and this could be giving money to, like, I think every year I give money to like the Beekman Town hockey kids. Every year I give money to the PHS Drama Club. Like, I like giving back to these kids that are organizations. Now having kids myself, it's kind of, especially, I mean, to me, the backpack program at JCO is so, like, it's so important. Just
sure,
and again,
it's a no-brainer.
No, exactly. And the thing is, I should be more aware of the stuff that they do. United Way. I got to get a couple of the people from United Way and JCO here because I'm curious to see what they do in the community because I know they do a lot more than what I know. And so the biggest thing is, like, we like the idea that we can affect the local kids. We do it for the kids. So we really try to focus on money towards that, but keeping it within the Clinton County realm just because, again, I'd rather benefit our neighbors, kids that need it first than dumping somewhere else.
Well, it's kind of like, not to get into a deep conversation about taxation and tax policy and whatnot, but philanthropy is really a voluntary tax, right? It's individuals and or companies or organizations willing to give a portion of the money that they've earned in that year to a cause, to individuals to help in ways that are meaningful to them. But in its basic form, it's a form of voluntary tax. So I think that we as a society would be even better if we would empower organizations to give in more generous manners along these lines. Having a degree in econ, I don't know if that really helps my thinking along these lines. And it doesn't make a difference if you're a Republican or a Democrat. If you run a business, taxes can be expensive. And if you sort of said to every single business out there, hey, if you paid less taxes, but you could instead funnel that money into your immediate community, would you be willing to do so? I think most organizations would say, yeah. I'd like helping the homeless person in my hometown. I'd like to have money pooled in our community so that we could build more affordable housing and appropriate housing for individuals who don't have as much. I don't want kids to not be able to go through the weekends without food. That's the backpack program. I think they call it, I forgot the exact terminology, but it's sort of like food insecure households is what they call it. So, if you even think about that, I imagine your children and my children, it's sort of the embarrassment of the riches. They go to their pantry and they have a hard time figuring out what they're going to eat. Mm-hmm. The fact that there are households in our community where kids don't have anything to eat, you, me, and so many others would keep giving as much as we possibly could to make certain that situation doesn't happen. And, the golf event that you guys ran and other events like it help to solve those problems, and I think they're really meaningful in the community.
Yeah, I think Nicole told me from JCO. She said that the money we gave, because we ended up splitting it between the two, because we kind of we usually do it where one side does get more because it does add the winner loser. So it just kind of we actually do legitimately give more money to the team that wins.
Right.
This year was kind of weird. We had a rain delay, not rain delay, but it was like kind of storming, and Matt's team ended up winning basically by half a point. It was very close, but we just felt we never actually finished it, so we had to kind of call it a little bit, like a few holes early. So we just said, well, let's just split it year one. So both sides, I think, made basically $2,500, but that was, I think, that will feed 14 kids for the school year, I think.
Yeah.
That's 14 more kids that would have had it, or allows them to give more to more kids or whatever. So, I mean, for something that was a lot of fun for us, and really it was fun to work on, to see that 14 kids are going to have a direct impact on that. And these are kids that could be living next door to you. And to me, that's kind of the cool thing. It's not like we're sending this out to some corporation somewhere, which honestly, a lot of that money goes to marketing dollars. I know it. Like when you go to these big fundraising companies that they're getting money in, but they're running a business.
Yeah, they run, and they're still valid in what they're trying to achieve. It's just a large, not a large on a percentage basis. Hopefully, it's small, but it's still a fairly large amount of actual dollars that doesn't go to where you wanted it to go, right? Mm-hmm. And my wife tells a story that she was picking up one of our children at school at Oak Street, and one of my child's friends got in the car on a Friday afternoon, and he had 2 backpacks. And this is actually what got her involved in the program, is that the kid got in the car, and they were only, I think, in 4th grade at the time. And so she was like, so what's the additional, you got 2 backpacks, what's going on there? And he says, yeah, one of them's for food. I bring home food every Friday. And she was like, wait a minute, like in her mind, not that you feel like you're so far removed, but it was like, here was a friend of our child's getting in our car, thankfully young enough where he's not, it's that age. Yeah. It's kind of a sweet age where there's no shame. There's nobody knows anything. Everybody just shrugs their shoulders and says, oh, he's got another backpack. But for my wife in the car, like I said, before we started recording, she can cry at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
I think she probably had tears in her eyes driving down the road, driving this kid back to wherever he lives. I think just an apartment building around the corner. But it just sort of hit home to her that, hey, you know what? This backpack program things that we've been talking about, because I think I brought home the idea. They presented to the United Way one night, and I said to her, if you really want a tearjerker, learn about this backpack program, because there are food insecure households right here in our backyard. And then when she met that individual who was a part of that program, that's what sort of inspired her to get involved and to sort of do more and more. And she volunteers a ton of hours every year to make certain that there are activities and efforts in our community that's going to keep growing the number of backpacks that are provided, because there's a large number of them, and it's not a large number of them in some faraway enclave of the North Country. It's 98 households at the city school district, right?
Yeah, and that's something I think over time, I think we want to get more involved with drawing out, because we give the money, and no offense to any of the guys playing in this, or Megan Strong played in it too, any of the players that played in this, and even myself, I'm very limited onto the knowledge of what we're actually giving the money to. So I think part of it is, as this grows, I would like to showcase that a little more and use this as a platform that they can, because again, you're getting people that want to donate to it, but we've thought about different ways where, like, how do we could end up turning this into their biggest function, moneymaker for both of them for these programs. Honestly, it might be now. I mean, directly, I guess, because I'm sure they get fundraisers from other.
Sure.
But there might be a way that we could grow this to the point where we give those organizations a platform to basically put it out to people, knowing that the people amongst these group of people are going to be the ones that will probably be willing to share it and organize and get the word out a little bit. And hoping that does happen, because there's so many different ways that this thing can go, and we're excited.
Yeah, because you could have, it's 2 teams, right?
Just 2 teams, yeah.
2 teams, but how many different players on each team?
This year was 8 each.
So 8 each. So if you did 8 times 250 times 2, like if you could say each, so like twosome or foursome or whatever, if you sort of empower them, listen, you guys, your entry fee is you raise $250, right? And you're sort of throwing it in the kitty, if you will. And so at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know if that's how you did it this year or not, but
no, this year was just, hey, if Forrest Edwards is playing, Forrest Edwards gives us $100.
Okay.
Half of it goes to play basically your golf, and then half of it goes to, so each person put in about $50 towards as a $50 personal donation. Any money we added the mulligan rule in, meaning kind of a per each match, you can get up to $20 worth of mulligans, which is 2 mulligans for $10 each. We raised over $600 in mulligans, which shows how good these golfers were, which a lot of us were buying them. But it ended up getting to the point like all that money went too. So we ended up, but yes, the way you're talking about increasing more money, and this is probably something we'll be asking you probably next year, because I think you'd have some good ideas on this. Like because we're going to start working on this probably in January, February again, just to really get ahead of the curve and like where do we want this to go? But I think if we can figure out a way where we've talked about, does each player, are they responsible? Like, is your entry fee, like you have to pay $100 to get in,
right,
but your entry fee is you have to raise $500 to be eligible to be in the tournament.
Right.
And we thought about like, it's a cutoff, but it's like if you want to get in, you have to raise, and this could be you personally paying the money. This could be you giving money from a company. This could be from I don't know who. But
you could just ask companies to sponsor you. Hey, listen, I need $250.
Well, we also thought about that too. Where do you have a player like if I was just playing and I'm like, well, Kavanaugh Realty's my sponsor,
right?
And we just play. I think, and obviously I have a direct tie, but I'm saying if like some of these companies, if like, don't really work for anybody, but like, hey, I got this company that supported me and they're my sponsor, that person would actually be like not working, but like representing that person. So we kind of thought, is this a cool way to get more businesses and more people involved by having almost like
like their sponsor
horse in the race kind of thing. Yeah. And like, but even though we're on teams, I don't know. So we're kind of like a sponsorship exemption. So we're kind of working on, we've also talked about, we have too many players. Do we do a full nother tournament just to play in?
It would be kind of cool if you had each team. So you have 2 teams, and each team has like their own, like, here are all the sponsors of Team A. Here are all the sponsors of Team B, and it's sort of the culmination of all the different corporate sponsors who, is DeBoos. He's at Norsk, right? So Norsk Titanium. It's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
You could have Norsk Titanium as his sponsor, and you could almost like have your employer, or if you own the company, you could sort of. It would be kind of cool to see here are the 2, and all of these companies are responsible for raising all this money for this wonderful cause.
Well, one of the things we wanted to do too, which is similar to that, and I got to see how this legally can be done because we weren't sure if this could be done, is there a way that you can almost do like live betting during this thing? Because we wanted to like film some stuff and like, okay, we're going to film
like
this.
DraftKings?
Yes, we're going to, yes, exactly where I'm going. We're going to film the 7th hole. It's a par 3. And people can bet, is this person going to hit the green?
Oh, yeah.
And we might go in like, okay, Steve LeBombard's a good golfer. Steve's chances to make it is like, it might be 1 to 2. You might have a bad golfer. Like the chances they hit it, like if you put money in, you make more. But people make money.
Yeah,
we get some of the profit, but then you pay out. I don't know if that's legal. We've heard it might not be because maybe it's charity. I don't know. But we're going to do all the legal stuff we can to make money because I think that's a good way that if people are actually live streaming this thing, and being like, okay, the 7th hole there's a challenge, or there's another challenge on another hole, like, or just randomly on hole 9 you get a shot from 100 yards and it's certain amount of money, or does someone get an eagle or net birdie or whatever we have is the, there's so many things you can bet on, and we just kind of come up with odds on it and then pay them out. I don't know how we can do that, but this is like stuff in our head. Like, can we get to the point where maybe not the next couple of years, but by year 5 or 6, could we have literally like on-course betting where people are just like watching.
But oftentimes people are betting so that they're hoping that they're going to win the bet and get the money. But you could say, hey, listen.
We could do it like a 50-50, or we could do like, hey, we'll do the bets, but we automatically take like 5% of each bet, no matter what,
right,
win or lose, and then we split the half and half. So like you could put money in, but if you're putting $10 in to win 100, you might win 9. You might win 90, but we get 10. You win 90, but you spent 10 to get 90.
Right.
So it's kind of like we're trying to find ways. Like, I don't know if that's illegal. That could be totally illegal. If not, we're going to wait till it becomes legal before we can do it. But
these platforms that are sort of around us now, DraftKings and Penn Gaming, and
FanDuel,
yeah, right? All these companies that are up and coming, they are certainly. I think those are the platforms that you would contact.
I almost want to just call them. Be like, is there a way that we can run this on like a little amateur, like little fun,
without a doubt,
charity event?
Yeah, I think that they would be all over that.
Yeah, it adds a little bit of fun, but I'm just saying there's a lot of people, probably like yourself, that if they're sitting on a Saturday, be like, let me just like check in and be like, huh, Galen's on a par 3. If I spend $10, I could win 50. Right. Yeah, whatever, go for it.
Right.
And I hit it. And I'm like, dude, I won $50. And like, hey, worst case, the money goes to charity. So like, I think it's a win-win no matter what. Because even if you lose, the money goes to a charitable organization. We got to see, because that's stuff like we kind of threw out that like that might be fun. It may not be this coming year, but I think it's a way for people to get involved where they don't have to be at the course. Kind of we talked about like the social distancing and Zooming.
Yeah.
Like, can we do something where people could be at their house, could be working on their yard and just like pop on their phone for a few minutes and watch, or maybe they just put a bet on a match. Hey, you got to bet on the Trombley Craig match with Lee and whoever, and then we're going to take them like chances they close out 3-2 versus 2-1 versus losing, and we could almost like have actual numbers like that and different payouts. I think it'd be kind of cool, and then people could like fill in and be like, oh, you won $120 today based on all your bets, or like, hey, you lost $200. Thank you.
It'd be fun to do also is not that we have to talk about golf the whole time, but wouldn't it be fun to have actual caddies?
So last year we had Forrest and Meg did caddying.
Right, but I mean, like if you had like because then you'd have so many more people, like actual human beings involved. Yeah. Every player has their own caddy.
So that was another thing. Do we do something funny where we do like the cat? Like last year, Meg got a whole jumpsuit. She looked like a Augusta caddy.
Yeah.
Do we get something like that where everybody, you get it? We do all the caddy suits up. Everybody has their names on it. You pick your caddy. You can have whoever you want. They either put a certain amount of money in, or they're just there and like, hey, to be a caddy, you got to donate $25.
Caddy, and maybe live stream it, or at least be live texting the event.
So that's one of the big things I think we're going to start. Like this year was like, okay, like you, like a title sponsor, which wasn't even in the plans, but like the shirts and trophy and the scoreboard, like a lot of these weren't even in the plans. So like we want to do it, but we want to be very what's the word, thrifty. We wanted to be very efficient with the money, meaning we didn't want to spend really anything. So we tried to be as bare bones as possible when it came to actually money out for stuff.
Right.
And to be honest, I don't know if we spent, besides spending money on golf, I think that was the only thing we personally spent. Like donations was everything else, but like we weren't going and dipping into donations to cover really anything. But now it's like, how do we make it even more fun? Which is like, then we start doing these little like side things that can add to the user experience of the tournament. So it's still fun. It's still a lot of guys doing it, but it's the idea that we can really get more people involved. And I don't think there's any reason why we could have, I mean, in theory, you could probably have $5 to $7 grand raised by the time this tees off. And by the time you're done, you're up to 12, 15. And I think that's legitimate.
You also ought to try the Frisbee golf. I'm not a Frisbee golf guy, ever in my life.
Like you're talking like disc golf.
Yeah, but there's like a whole course behind my house over at SUNY Plattsburgh, right?
Okay.
And
there's one at Katie'ville too.
Yeah, I don't think the course costs anything.
True. I didn't think about that. Like we've thought of.
And I love golf, and I love supporting the local, golf courses. But if you wanted to do something and sort of expand the audience, you don't have to be a golfer. You just come on out and throw frisbees around.
I'm not against that. This could turn into like for the kids. Like we have like this is the main one, but we could have like little offshoot events that add to the total.
Yeah,
I'm not against it. That'd be kind of cool too, because I've never played disc golf, but I'm sure we could go buy like a cheap set of discs. Like
they have them there. I mean, I know.
Really?
I see people walking up all the time. They have their case over their shoulder and they have their own discs. People get into it, But I think there's actually a box back there with free discs already in it.
Kind of like renting, just free. Like just go grab them.
Yeah.
I'm not against it. I've played disc golf once. It was tough. It was something. It was a learning curve. I played it at Katie'ville, and I don't know if they have 9 or 18 holes there, but it's pretty crazy because I'm used to just kind of like throwing it. And when you actually see the good guys, they're going and they're like whipping it and they're doing these big hooks. And do you know Chris Verkey at all?
I know the name.
So Chris came on the podcast. He's a phys ed teacher at Saranac, but he was a very good athlete. He was like an All-American. I think he had the national. He missed the Olympics by like point something seconds.
Oh, really?
Actually running the Olympics. He was I want to make sure 400 meter hurdler or 110. I think it was 400 meter hurdles, which is like his thing. Big tall guy, big in the disc golf, and he was like trying to tell me everything. Like he brings his like book bag with like multiple this one goes right, this one goes left, this one goes high, this one goes low.
It's like clubs.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, like I can appreciate what you're saying. I'm totally lost right now, but I can appreciate that. So, but that's it. Well, enough to talk about golf. I'm sure we're gonna like pick your brain a little bit on ideas that you have, but I think it'll be fun because we're really looking at like year 3 Year 2 got legit. Like, we got the people. This is going to expand out. We're going to probably bring on a few more players next year, but we're close to maxing out the amount of players we want for this portion. This might be a 2-step thing when we play into the main showdown, and that was another way to raise money. So,
well, if we get the vaccines that are coming around the corner, hopefully we'll be back to business as usual, if you will, quote unquote, and then we could really have a fun event where even if the Coryer staffing employees weren't able to actually play in the event, we would love to sort of be there for an after party or just have make it something so that it's a real event.
Our after party this year was like we went to Valcor. I'd probably say half the field went to Valcor. We just got a couple drinks and hung out.
Sure.
But what we wanted to do was a more formal, like you come, but it's like an actual, like, you know, it might just be drinks and cocktails and stuff and finger foods, but still have it where you still go there and spend another 2 hours hanging out with everybody and just kind of unwind and have fun. And I think because, again, as you know, 80KYP, it's like a lot of it is the networking. So, like, some of these guys didn't even know each other. And then by the time they were done, like, I just feel like I know the guy now. Right. And that was part of it. It was like, that's a really cool thing, especially to go from golf to now you can go to, like, an after-hour type setting with, you know, drink and relax and hang out. That's when a lot, I mean, as you know, that's where a lot of friendships develop. And that's, you know, name of the game is when you're not stressed out. You're just kind of hanging out and, you know, shooting the breeze with some friends. That's kind of where a lot of, I think, relationships and friendships grow. So, we do want to make this more legitimate, and that's why I think we're starting a little earlier, just to kind of throw all the crazy ideas out, and then from there really fine tune it, and then every year just keep building. So I'm excited.
And from, you know, what's important to Elizabeth and myself, and important to, you know, Coryer staffing isn't just this entity. We have a wonderful group of individuals who are, more of them are along the lines of you and the folks here at Adirondack Young Professionals. We want to get them more involved in that, but we as a company, one of the focuses that we have in this upcoming year is sort of like, let's figure out almost like these pop-up fundraisers. You know, either it's raising, you know, like I think you guys are involved in, you know, winter clothing drive and, you know, professional clothing drive and, you know, whatever else might be appropriate in our community to help people who are less fortunate or raise awareness of situations that we'd like to have improved. You know, the Strand was a perfect focus for so many years to sort of make certain we had that cultural focus and cultural center in downtown Plattsburgh. You know, what's next? You know, where do we need to be focusing on in our community? And, you know, I think that aligning ourselves with you guys and with Adirondack Young Professionals, you know, Coryer staffing in the group, let's figure out what's next. And this can be a focus on that charity, but what else we need to do, right?
Yeah, I think it's cool. This is going to be a fun thing, and I think a lot of these people are just like, again, the good idea is that young professionals turn into old professionals at some point, so they're going to be around for a while, so it'll be good. So I think we reeled some of these players in for the long shot. So
and what's funny is like I started in the 90s. I was the founder of what's called the Young Business and Professional Association. It was called YBPA, and it was around for about 2.5 years, and it sort of disbanded. I left town, then Michael Cavanaugh took over as president, and he ran it for about a year, and I think it just sort of fizzled out after that. But we had like 125, 150 members then, and then when I came back to Plattsburgh, the Adirondack Young Professionals was just being kicked around, so I was a founding board member of that. So like I'm naturally drawn to those organizations, and it's almost unfortunate that you sort of age out of them.
What was the first one called?
The YBPA.
YBPA. Okay.
Yeah.
YBPA. So Matt Boyer was on here, and he was the first one to ever mention that. And he mentioned your name, and he mentioned, Matt, right? I think it was Matt Boyer, yeah. So I'm trying to think of, it was Matt the one that was telling me the story. But I think Matt said that he was involved with it, but I think he said that you were the president, founder.
I was the founder, yeah. And president, yeah.
Yeah, so he mentioned that, and he goes, yeah, so we were doing this, and he started talking about that, and then it kind of just fizzed out, and he kind of said the same exact story. And I mean, Matt's great. He's a witty individual. I like talking with him, but he same thing. We came back to 80KYP. One of our things is like, why is this group right now under 50 people, which is crazy.
Makes no sense.
And it's like, and then this year has been tough, and I know there's some good people behind it, but again, you're just you thrive on the networking. When you can't network, it gets very difficult.
Right.
But we're hoping like this actually, I think if you had to pick this year, 2020, this is probably the biggest event 80KYP kind of headline, because there's no other chance for us to do much. The Economic Forum was canceled. But one of our goals is to increase, and I talked to you before, and this year obviously was a little more difficult to try to spearhead it, but getting this larger, getting more people involved, but also getting the college more involved. And
Right.
I think if we can get a direct line from the college into ADKYP, and then also have local businesses that truly believe that there's value from the club, because you can't just say, like, tell people to come to our event and they show up and they're like, well, we didn't do anything, we just kind of hung out and
Right.
had a beer and whatever. I mean, those are good, but I think there's got to be a lot of, like, what's the value add for some people? And I think that has been, I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Because I know we had discussed it a little bit, but I think you kind of having...
Well, I think the value, you have to ask yourself, what's your purpose of existing, and what do people really benefit from? And I think that younger professionals benefit from experienced professionals. They benefit from learning about the history of the North Country, learning about the successful companies and or business people in the North Country. And I know that YBPA, we did a lot of guest speakers. We would have the business leaders come in and just have a conversation with the group about who they are, what they've done, what they're doing, and where they're going, and that was a lot of fun. Just at the same time, sort of like forgiving ourselves for allowing, once in a while you do just want to, after work, go grab a beer and hang out, and that's okay as well. Sometimes you can overthink it. I think being as inclusive as possible, but for certain, getting businesses to underwrite the existence, I think, is really important. Just sort of saying to any of the companies of any great size, listen, we really want you to sort of have a continual, $500, $750, $1,000 a year sort of buy into the Adirondack Young Professionals. It's kind of like paying school tax. Even if your kids aren't going to that school, you're still benefiting from the benefits that that school has in your community. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't have an employee at the Adirondack Young Professionals, you have to see that there's benefit to having a real strong organization right in our community, so that when people do come to the area, if they graduate from college and stick around, there's sort of a set in place, a vehicle that helps them make connections and feel welcomed in the community. And then when we're recruiting people to the area, if it's their kids or if it's spouses or whatever the case might be, getting those individuals to know if it's appropriate to them, get them plugged into this group that will welcome them with open arms and help them feel like they have a home here in the North Country.
What is roughly, if you had to guess from a staffing perspective, like what amount of staffing clients, is that what you call them? Like if people come
the
to
companies?
You? No, you have clients.
Candidates.
Candidates. So
sure.
Out of the candidates that come, what percentage do you think would be roughly in the young demographic, like probably the 20, 30-year-old profession, 20s and 30s? Because usually 40, they always say is a cutoff, even though I'd still consider early 40s still young.
It's not a large percentage. I think you'd have more success having people who are going to Plattsburgh State and the other universities in the area as they graduate people out, and sort of if we do a better job of sort of attracting them to the entry and near entry level roles, kind of quasi-professional roles at the better employers. But when they're applying to those jobs, having those companies sort of have a set in place, like a pamphlet, a brochure about the organization for each new hire that they have in that demographic.
Do you guys get a lot of current graduates, I guess, of Plattsburgh State that seek you guys out?
Yeah, I mean, a lot. It would probably be, there's a lot of people who come to Plattsburgh who are from other communities, mm-hmm. and they oftentimes, especially, you have Long Island and New York City and, like Rochester and Syracuse, you have those other communities that people come to Plattsburgh State. They're going to go back there near home where it's a larger community. But there's a decent percentage of individuals, again, especially as time goes on, where we have more people in the North Country who are seeing value and sticking around the North Country and taking advantage of the low cost of going to Plattsburgh State and Clinton Community College and the like. I think we're seeing that on the rise, having individuals graduate and want to find opportunities here locally.
Yeah. So it's trending in the right direction then?
I think it's trending in the right direction is probably strong. I think it has the capacity to trend in that direction. The real challenge that you have is that a lot of companies in the area, the larger employers in the area, aren't always the corporate headquarters. Mm-hmm. They are divisions of a large company. It's the assembly plant. It's location 2. If Coryer Staffing opens up another office downstate, we're not going to duplicate a lot of the sort of the administrative roles that exist at Coryer Staffing. You know, we won't double our marketing people. We won't double our accounting people. We won't double, you know, and sort of the same thing happens at a lot of the companies around here. If they are divisions of another company, then sales most likely doesn't exist here, and marketing doesn't exist here. And if there's accounting, there's maybe one or two people sort of in an accounting capacity, but there isn't the entire accounting department. So when people are graduating from Plattsburgh State, especially in the School of Business, you know, there's probably less opportunities for them historically in the North Country coming right out of school than there might be in a larger city where there are more companies or more larger accounting firms, larger companies, more headquarters, if you will.
That
Does
makes
that make
sense.
sense?
Yeah, no, for sure. I never thought about it that way because that definitely makes sense. You're saying basically a lot of the ones that we come here because they're, you know, a secondary company. I say secondary, but like you said, second location.
It's a division of a.
Yeah, I get it. Their headquarters is going to have a lot more involved in it. Like, what companies around here? Is there any that are headquartered around here, like major companies? Like we talk about the Nova
Headquartered is probably hard, but like Mold Rate Plastics is a good example of a company that has almost every single type of role here. You know, they do have engineering, they do have sales, they have inside sales, they have outside sales, they have a very robust accounting department. They have, of course, their manufacturing and their warehousing and their logistics, and they have the full assortment of roles. And then you might have another company that could be in the transportation space where a lot of those corporate roles, the accounting, marketing, sales, a lot of that is going to be out of another location. And here it's going to largely be assembly, manufacturing, maybe warehousing and logistics.
Yeah, and this is one thing that, I mean, we were talking about earlier, I think, before we went live, the amount of like growth that I'm just starting to get to now, because again, I hit 30. I'm really trying to dive into the greater, you know, business community now and trying to understand different industries now, right? Because there's a lot of correlation. So one of the things when I start talking, like you just said with the staffing idea, but then also going into different companies that they play a part in our community, but I've been somewhat sheltered from, that I'm not exposed to, because one of the best things you were at it. Billy Jones Roundtable thing,
right?
Was a year ago or so, roughly. I remember going to that, and I thought it was cool. I was like, this is, you know, Billy, good dude. Like, he invited me to this thing, and I went, and never said a word. And I was like, and it was funny because I had I did all my homework, had all these paperwork, had a bunch of stats. Like, I was ready to go. If I was called on, I had my stuff to reference. I was good. I mean, I know it, but I had like the numbers, and I printed out for everybody. And kind of an aside, I remember seeing Billy after. I said, "Hey, Billy, thanks for letting me be here." And he goes, "Hey, man, I thought you were going to say, like, give us the real estate spin." I said, "Well, nobody ever asked." But I said, "Here," and I gave him a bunch of stuff. I said, "I'm ready to go." So, but one of the things that was cool and eye-opening there was probably 30 people, maybe 25, 30 people. And yourself, me, there was a bunch of other people from education, from agriculture, from a bunch of different just small businesses.
Right.
And I looked at it, and I didn't even want to say anything because I was just like so enthralled and just listening to what people were saying. Because again, I think me and Alex Berry were the two youngest people there at the time, and just able to listen to people. And again, I would say successful people in their field, in our area. There was a lot of like successful people there that knew what they were talking about. I'd say like local industry experts. So I'm sitting there listening to these people talk about what's challenging for them, and then, you know, also seeing what, you know, what Billy and I forgot the other guy's name that was there from the state. But he was there, and then Gary Douglas, and talking about challenges we face, and then I'm kind of like, wow, it's like there's a lot of us face the same challenges, and like we talked about. I mean, as simple as cell phone coverage, like how does that affect everybody? And like, right. I complain because my call drops when I'm driving between appointments, which is not a huge deal. But then you talk about some of these people, like they need it for emergency purposes and don't have it. And looking at that, I'm looking at, you know, when you start talking about the school system, and like BOCES was there and talking about certain things they face. And I remember there was a couple, I think there was a farmer there talking about stuff he has faced, and trying to just see it from the grander scale of just like, I'm like so much in a bubble day to day. I'm like, I work in real estate and I work in this company day to day. So it's nice that I've really getting exposed to other people, having conversations with you, having conversations with, you know, whether it be Aaron or whether it be, you know, Adam Crosby or these other friends of mine in different businesses and picking their brain and asking their opinions on stuff has allowed me to grow and see more. So I think that's something that when you talked about like the other kind of going full circle here, when we were talking about like YPP, whatever that group
YBPA.
YBPA.
Yeah.
I want to keep saying there's a W in there, but what? Okay, so that company, like seeing that and then talking about people coming in and talking, like that's where I think there's a lot of value is just learning from people. I like learning from where people are now and trying to get to that level or trying to pick their brain because they've like you giving me advice on certain things. I'm like, okay, it makes sense. Like I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Like hopefully 5-10 years from now, I'd be like, I can't believe I didn't know that at that time. But it's stuff that you learn that, like, I mean, for you, when you first got into kind of like realizing and going into like a business space or whatever it might be, professional setting, who were people that you looked for, or who do people did you learn from, or who are your mentors, or who are still your mentors? Like what, you don't say certain names, or you can, but like what industries and what positions and where were they from? Local people out of the area?
Well, I think first of all, it's a good question. I mean, there are people in my life who've been really impactful. Trent Trahan, who owns, Champlain Telephone Company and PrimeLink. He sold that recently to, they have the company that took over PrimeLink. The name's escaping me, but he's been really meaningful. Greg McConnell, who works with him and runs that organization. You go way back, David Meath, who owned Buck Paper, and just picking his brain. There's just been different individuals throughout the years. And then when I was doing, when we first started doing business with Schluter Systems, first Heidi Breton, she was really great to sort of
Heidi.
Have a conversation with her. But then, Brad Van Brunt was somebody who was meaningful to me and sort of helped me understand sort of what exactly they were doing over at Schluter Systems and how that company was growing and so many more. But I guess what keeps me going, day in, day out, but what I guess the reason why I enjoy doing what I'm doing is that I like learning about business. I really like learning about business. Like I roll up my sleeves. Like I probably know more about the real estate business than most people know. I certainly know more about like manufacturing and assembly than a lot of people know. Not because I feel like I'm smarter than other people, but I really enjoy learning about them because the businesses are fascinating. And when you know about the business, it's easier to sort of understand, the entire sort of spectrum of individuals who may be appropriate for those companies. A company at a certain size probably isn't going to be interested in a graphic designer, but when they grow a little bit and maybe they start to have a marketing department, then maybe they'll be interested in that. I guess it's just there have been individuals who've been impactful to me, but I think more importantly than that, just having sort of a real voracious interest in all of the companies in the North Country and trying to sort of understand, and probably this is the econ degree coming through, is just understanding what a market is and understanding the dynamics of a market and understanding what is, Jefford Steel's role in this community in the entirety of their market. Again, Schluter Systems and Mold Rate Plastics and Volvo, and when a Volvo comes to town with Nova Bus and all of the associated companies that follow them, and sort of really sort of wrapping your mind around sort of like, how that happens, why that happens, and how that impacts a community, is not only fascinating to me, but it's super helpful in being effective in what we do, which is helping companies attract people to their ranks, right? That's what we do every day that we're in business at Coryer Staffing is, we help, companies can only be as successful if they have the people that they need to be successful. And we feel like it's our job to be positioned to sort of not only meet those companies and get job orders from those companies, but for me, it's really understanding the dynamics of those companies and not just how they're situated today, but as they grow, what are their demands going to be, and how can we best help them grow, right?
So where do you think that, like the staffing agency, like where do you think that's going in the next 10 years? Is there like have you seen a shift in the style of job? Have you found a shift in the way that you're doing stuff? Obviously 2020, I know we mentioned before, like it's at a little bit different dynamic in regarding, not as much face-to-face where it's more virtual, but do you find that what you're planning on potentially hiring for going in the future, looking at what type of jobs are coming in the future, looking at what type of, maybe when we've talked about things being more automated, like and not with individuals, do you find that things are going to pivot where maybe technology takes out some factors, but then people adapt and grow into other businesses I'm assuming you guys are always looking in the future, kind of like where is our industry going? I do it all the time in real estate. Like it's just, I've always got a pulse on where we're heading.
Yeah, a couple of things. So the reason we started the RAMP program, which was, was the idea that my wife and I had, to solve a problem, right? And the problem existed. Companies in our region had expressed for years that they have a difficult time attracting entry-level individuals to their ranks. And there are other challenges in the community. The people who are sort of appropriate for these entry-level roles, can they pass drug tests? Can they pass criminal background checks if it's appropriate to the situation? And also, just the economist in me sort of always looking at every year there's a large number of people who graduate from our local high schools, and where are they going? So that's like idea number one. What's happening to all these individuals? And then sort of doing more research, rolling up our sleeves, and realizing that every year if there's 1,500 people who graduate in the North Country, I have to imagine that there's probably, and the numbers support it, there are probably 25 to 30% of those individuals who graduate with what we call without a real plan, without a concrete understanding as to what they want to do next. So if you have that, now you have this pool of 350 to 450 individuals who are graduating without a plan. And then you have these legions of companies who are sort of saying year in, year out, hey, we're having a difficult time attracting individuals to entry-level roles. David, how can you help us? To me, it's just sort of like, all right, we just need to figure out a better way to help these two parties come together.
Matchmaker.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we started RAMP by sort of feeling like, what is the friction there? What are the barriers to somebody being attracted to these entry-level roles? And if we can help solve this problem, we solve the problem for our clients and we help these people land these jobs. Well, the number one thing was, I think that people have a hesitancy to sort of walk out of high school and say, I believe that I want to spend the rest of my life doing X. However, if we can give them the opportunity to see what it's like to work in one industry for 3 months, work in another industry for 3 months, another industry for 3 months, in another industry for 3 months, or at least a different employer, you give them 4 opportunities in their first year after they graduate from high school. That solves a couple of problems. A, you fill a lot of these entry-level positions with entry-level candidates. Yes, there's planned turnover. In other words, these individuals are going to do a job for 3 months and then move on to the next. But the good news, there's somebody else behind them that's already sort of put in place to fill it. So you don't really ever lose somebody performing those roles. But for the individuals who are performing the jobs, they, in their first year after they graduate, and I think you and I would both agree that if we had a program like this when we graduated high school, and let's just say we wanted to take a year off or take a gap year or whatever you want to call it, if you could work 4 jobs at some of these more dynamic companies in the North Country, at the end of 12 months, you're going to have a far better understanding as to what kind of jobs, what kind of companies exist here, what are the real careers within those companies? Because what we found as the companies were signing up with us and being willing to participate in RAMP, they went from saying, hey, we just want to fill these entry-level roles to making statements like Eric Zeislov said, this is a real opportunity for us to showcase mold rate plastics, right? Schluter Systems, same thing. Brian Hughes, this is a real opportunity for us to sort of let individuals know what kind of wonderful opportunities exist at Schluter Systems. Spencer ARL, Fujitsu, all these other companies who have sort of embraced this, if you will. That's us. You ask, like, what are we doing to adapt and change with time? We created this program so that these individuals, when they graduate, instead of working with what, quote unquote, what would be a typical recruiter, we've hired these individuals. We call them RAMP counselors, and they are folks who previously educators, most of them, but they spend the year guiding and supporting and counseling, if you will, the ramp participants as they go through this first year of work, because they didn't know what they wanted to do when they graduate. Then now they're out to work. We believe that that's a better model to sort of address this entry and near entry level hiring in our community.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this when you guys first came on. It's like the idea that when I was in school, this 12 years ago, I left high school, and I applied to one college, Plattsburgh State. The only reason I applied to Plattsburgh State was because I had to go, like, in my mind, I was like, okay, graduate high school, I got to go to college. I was one of those kids, I'm like, I don't know what I want to do in college.
Right.
Don't care. When undecided, I literally applied to one place because I just knew I had to go to college. I'm like, well, I'll just apply to the one down the road because I didn't really care. And I wish at the time, I always say if I could go back in time, if I could go back to ninth grade, I would jump into, I wouldn't take the maths and science that I normally would. I would go to the tech realm, which back when I was in school, if you went to like tech math and tech science, you were considered dumb. Like, and the thing is, I'm looking at it now, I'm like, why the hell did I not go there? Because the amount of stuff you learn, like, and I know the kids that come out, they can probably build a house right now. And I'm like, it blows my mind that this was beliefs that I had from 2004 or 5, because that was just the way society was. And I came through. I would have done that. I would have done 2 years at CV Tech, my junior, senior year. I probably would have come out with some type of, I guess, certification or whatever in a trade. And then I would have probably, like, in my head now, knowing that the trades the way they are, they're retiring out of them and nobody's coming in to fill them. If I could have became an electrician, a plumber, I know myself, I would have done that. I would have turned it into some business. I would have ran a business around some type of trade, kind of like you'd look at like an Ace Electric or a PM Leary, like these guys that have, a pretty sizable company based around trades. And the thing is, I'm in real estate. These guys come up a lot in these kind of situations. Yeah. We need them. And it's like, I don't know how to do it. Like, I called Ace Electric today on a question about something I need done. I don't know how to do it. And I look at it back then, it's like I could learn all the business stuff, but like I never had anybody teach me or show me. Now I try YouTube and try to pick some stuff out. And I was like looking at this electrical problem, like, probably a little, I don't want to, it's a little out of my realm, but it's the idea that I wish what you guys are doing is filtering in. You have the kids that just want to go work and they already kind of have a job lined up and they want to do it. And that's one group. A majority of people still to this day want to go into that college route. I look at, if you're going to go to college and you're going to get a degree that's going to pay off for whatever you're getting a degree for, go for it. If you're not going for a degree in...
But it's hard to know.
It is hard to know.
It's hard I don't mean to interrupt you, but I don't...
You know where I'm going with this, so yeah.
Yeah, I think it's hard, but it's sort of like that's asking somebody to predict the future. What I firmly believe that if people graduated from high school, see the 12 months of working and having 3 or 4 different job experiences, who knows whether or not that's what they really want to do. But at least I feel like individuals, there's a part of me that just feels like the more that we can sort of dispel the myths of life, the more that we can sort of show people the type of opportunities, what happens within the 4 walls of these companies. For me, these companies are far more dynamic than you might think just driving by them and seeing the big square boxes on the side of the road. They're interesting, they're dynamic, they have real careers. You can be entry level all the way up to multi 6-figure roles. You don't have to be just the CEO to earn really great money there. You can be head of engineering, head of quality, head of this, head of that, head of accounting. Really, strong areas. But part of the beauty of Ramp, I believe, is that the development that somebody goes through is they just get 1 year older, and you're sort of 12 months from now. Part of the Ramp program is getting people, as we grow the program, and part of the design is even showing these individuals or bringing people in who can talk to them about, college financial aid and what are the real opportunities at Clarkson University and North Country Community College and Paul Smith's and, of course, Plattsburgh and Clinton and Canton. But really sort of like, because when you're 17, 18 years old, you might not know up from down. But you work for 12 months. You see what it's like to earn a paycheck. We bring people in who talk about financial literacy and some other trainings, and then 12 months later, you know a little bit more about the world around you, and maybe you still want to go to college. That's great because you've given yourself some time, some breathing room to grow.
Yeah, and that's something I didn't have. I was like, graduate, a good job, go to college. And my college was undecided. The two fields I wanted to go into, that were decided between, was teaching and business. And look what mom and dad did. My mom was a teacher, my dad was in business, and it wasn't even real estate. I was kind of like, I think you when you said like staffing, I just don't want to get into that field, and I didn't want to get into real estate until probably. Well, junior year, I was like, can I? And there's reasons why I wanted to get into it, but they weren't very noble reasons. It was like, I want to make my own schedule and make more money than I was making at the other job that I was doing. And then over time, I was talking to someone yesterday. It's not really. I don't really love real estate. Like real estate's fun. It's a more fun industry to me than certain things. I like helping people. So I think
exactly right.
So I think if you take, and I was actually having this conversation with. Heath, Andre, I don't know if you know him. He runs a garbage company locally. I told him, I said, I could run a garbage company. I could sell like these things, like Yeti, whatever, little water things. Like I could sell that stuff if I know I was making a difference with people. Right. So it's like, I like taking a problem, because you kind of said, okay, how do I have a problem with these companies, the entry level? Where's my solution? Here they are. Let's merge the two. I look at real estate the same way. What are your goals? Okay, perfect. Let me filter it through my brain of all the stuff that I know about real estate, and let me pop out what I think is a solution, and let's work on getting that solution to help you accomplish your goal. Right. So the first question I always ask is, somebody's like, I want to sell a house, okay, or I want to buy a house. Why do you want to sell a house? Why do you want to buy a house? Like, why do you want to do this? Because you didn't just wake up this morning saying, hey, I'm just going to call this real estate guy and have him come over and, we're going to buy or sell a house today. So you've been thinking about it. So what is your plans? What do you want to really do? And some of the times I got to like polish that down a little bit and say, well, let's not do that, because it's not the right thing. Just because based on what you're telling me, timing or money or factors or whatever is not going to work out. I want to help someone with that decision. So when I find that someone sells their house or moves into a house and they're excited about one of the two, and I was able to help them accomplish that, that's a good feeling. But take real estate out and have me sell whatever or have me do whatever. If it's a service line of business that I can bring value to the end consumer and I have fun doing it, that's the kind of business I want to be in. I didn't realize that until recently. And now when we start talking about the stuff I've been talking to you about is like this golf tournament. If you would have told me 2 years ago that you'd be, oh, by the way, you'd be really excited in 2 years to run this golf tournament that's going to give money to charity for children, and now in your head, 2 years, you're going to pull off this tournament, and now all of a sudden your mind's going to be racing about how you can get from where you are now to here with this tournament, I would have said probably not. Like, I think it'd probably be cool, but like I'm not really into it. But it's my perspective on like a lot of things changes as I get older, which is just natural. Right. And that's the thing that I'm looking forward to is, now kind of understanding myself a little bit better and trying to understand different people and industries. And I see a lot of people, I talk to a lot of people, and trying to figure out where I can add value and stuff. And part of it too is I know as I go along my professional journey, I know growing or getting more successful or whatever, it's going to bring with it more opportunity for me. So then I look at the opportunity. How can I use that opportunity in a way that it's good and affects the most amount of people? And that's something that over the last couple of years has really weighed on my mind a lot. And that's kind of like my new North Star, where it's how can I grow as a person and grow a company or grow with other individuals locally to make a bigger impact than just maybe an individual buying or selling a home, or this office with the employees or the staff or the people, the agents here. Yeah. Because I think you guys do a good job on that. And I think, we were talking before, like you guys are going outside of Coryer Staffing's walls to affect more than just Coryer Staffing. Mm-hmm. And the people that do that, and there's some very good companies locally that you see them, they sponsor a lot of stuff. They donate a lot. They're always, you always see their logos at different functions. And I'm like, I like that because we talked at the beginning of this about going outside your walls to benefit the community. So is that how your focus on that? How long has that been? Because I know we're kind of circling back a little bit, but from giving back to people, and then where do you see yourself, Coryer Staffing, the North Country going over the next? You're what, 35? So what do you got? Really like another probably 30 or 40 really solid years left, I would think. Maybe you don't think that, but like
I can't imagine not working.
yeah, you seem like just mindfully young all the time.
Because I just like, well, here's how you and I are similar, is that you're in real estate, I'm in staffing. We're both in the people business. Mm-hmm. And when people talk about, what are the technologies that might wipe out the staffing industry? What are the technologies that might wipe out the real estate business? I think that you and I can very confidently say there's going to be all kinds of technologies that are going to improve our ability to service our clients. Because in the end, whether when you're leaving a job, when you're interviewing for a job, when you're trying to land a job, it's a very personal thing. And having personal and close guidance and counsel around those decisions is super important. And it's going to be really hard to take the human element out of that. Same thing when you're selling your home, considering a home, moving, buying a home, learning about a new community. It's very hard for technology, or at least for what I can even forecast into the future. It's going to be very hard for technology to completely remove the human element that helps somebody feel comfortable about making those decisions, about making those changes. So I would say that without a doubt, for the next 25 years, 30 years, maybe even longer, as long as we don't forget that what makes us successful is our ability to connect with people and our ability to continue to hire people and mentor individuals and make certain that we're adding people to our ranks who care about the people side of it. Because I don't care about of course you care about the number of houses that you sell, the transactions that you have. It's sort of what pays the bills. Mm-hmm. But it's if you're running your business the way I think you are, you're running your business similar to the way we run our business, and that is we're caring about the people we're meeting, making certain that we're being intentional about where are they going to land next, what companies are they going to be hiring with. When we're having conversations with the companies, we're really listening intently as to what are their goals, how are they trying to grow, what is the culture, who is ideal for their organization, really trying to marry those two. And as long as we focus on that, we're always going to be successful because, yes, we might make a few less placements, quote unquote, but the likelihood of those placements being successful, I think, goes through the roof. And as long as our success ratios are higher, then companies are going to keep coming back to us, because you can call anybody to just email you a pile of resumes and have a bunch of people show up at your door the next day. But if 30% of them are there in 3 months, then you really have to question whether or not that was worth your time. I'd rather have, half those individuals show up through our organization, but have the majority of them be sticking around. It's just about being intentional and being people focused and not placement focused or transaction focused.
But I think we talk about taking that and putting, we talk about my new North Star being a much bigger scale.
Right.
I don't make nearsighted decisions or short-term decisions because I'm always thinking long-term. So it's like you said, maybe I don't make an extra placement or we don't make an extra sale today. And there's plenty of times where I'm like, you know what, let's not do it. I tell many clients, let's wait till next year. It's fine. You can buy today. I'll make money today. But I said, and whatever this might be, but it's like, is it the best for you? And
right.
I always look at it, if it's not the best for you now, I actually had a quote. I had it on my old printer and I just moved it out. I actually had to write it back down. The quote is, when you focus on the numbers, when you focus on the people, the numbers take care of themselves.
Right.
Meaning, if any goal I have, anything I want to have, it's serendipity, it's karma, it's whatever. Is if I'm looking out for that person, whether they do something or taking the high road and stuff. If something bad happens, but you take the high road, and maybe I've had clients that call me and say, "Hey, listen, this is a thing. This happened. I ended up buying my house. I did this." I'm like, "Who cares? That's fine. I bought it for sale by owner." I'm like, can we help people for sale by owners? Yes, but some people don't know that. So then I'm just like, you know what? Did you get a house? You're happy with it? Yes, that's all we care. That our job is to get you a house, and you found a house without us. It doesn't matter. You accomplished your goal.
The same thing happens to us. We have very similar businesses, right? And what's with us, people land a job and they have to live with those consequences. Anybody can sell their house again. Anybody can take another job. But quite honestly, if it doesn't go well, they remember that, it leaves a bad taste in their mouth. With maybe they bought a house, and I know it's more difficult in today's day and age, but I still think it happens. People, you can sell somebody a house and you might know, it's questionable. Is it really worth what they paid for it? And if it's not worth what they paid for it, then they're going to suffer the long-term consequences of that investment, and that investment not coming back and paying returns. Yeah. But if you are looking at a piece of property and you know that it's overpriced and you know that your buyer is going to kind of get the short end of the stick if they push through and buy it. I think if you can step back and say, hey, listen, I know the kind of house that you want. I know that you have the ability to spend X, but let's wait a little bit, because I think that if we're patient, you're going to make a better buying decision a month, 2 months from now, and let's just be smart about this.
Well, it could be someone saying, hey, I'm qualified up to X, I want to spend up to X. I'm like, oh, you can. You can be house poor. Like, you want to do it? You can. You're fine.
Right.
You can qualify for it. But, you talk people down in price. Like, why don't we come back down on a realistic budget? I had another person wanted to buy a house, wanted to get rentals, wanted to start the rental thing, and I started talking to this person, and they had a business they were growing. They were growing quite fast, and I'm like, I said, you're growing the business pretty quick, right? I said, your returns are pretty good in your business, whatever. And we started chit-chatting, and I said, what happens if you take your down payment money and just dump it back into your business? Like, are you going to get a quicker return than buying real estate? And the light bulb went off. They're like, yeah, actually, I probably will. I said, don't buy real estate. This is me. This is a guy trying to sell you real estate. Don't buy real estate. It's not a good investment for you, because now it is for a lot of people, but a lot of people it's not. I personally don't buy real estate because I put money back into our business, which to me is a better investment currently in the current state. If it wasn't, I'd be putting money where it's smart.
Yeah, that's going to be a distraction. Even the best investment,
it's going to tie your money up.
It's going to tie up money, and it's going to be a distraction away from what really pays the bills for that individual. Some people are diversified enough where they can do that, and they're a little bit further along, right?
And this person's, I mean, they're like the same as me. It's like I only have so much to I have only so much to invest right now. I got to put it in the smart places now. And then, hey, 10, 15 years, 20 years from now, I'm hoping that I can put it in both baskets. But right now it's not. So it's like, and I got third kid on the way. It doesn't happen. They got one's born on Christmas, so we got a busy month coming up. But it's the idea that you try to, where you really look at, I think, the long-term play, where if I'm making decisions for 20, 30 years down the road, my short-term goals have been met, which is, but again, I didn't have that mindset until like the last 5 years of like, hey, let's make decisions that are going to impact you for 10, 20 years, not a year, or not even that, like a week. Like, okay, you got a commission check, great. Like, but I find that people, if you any kind of service business, if you look at, you need to know your numbers and stuff, but if you focus on that number, it's like it's you're so nearsighted, it blinds you from what the big picture is. So I always find that's fascinating with small companies, because you can tell the ones that really do it well, because when you talk to them, and I get this vibe from you, I get this vibe from a lot of different people, and I always find that like people attract like people.
Sure.
And like Aaron Benner, guy, I brought him up. Guy's a nut. We both know him, but he's one of these guys, like one of my best friends, and he's one of these guys I met. I'll have to tell you this. I think I told you the story when I first met Aaron. Maybe, I don't know. If not, I'll tell you after. It's
I don't know.
On a whim, and I basically it was kind of like we were at a career day fair, and basically it was like asking out. It was like I'm gonna make Aaron sound like a maybe a high school girl at this point. It's like going and asking a high school girl to dance. It was kind of one of those things. Like I just rolled up on him, cold call, didn't know who he kind of knew who I was by face, but didn't know who I was, and I just like rolled up on him, started asking questions. It's just a long story. I'll get into it later, but the whole thing is, I look at someone like Aaron. Aaron knows his numbers, but like he's a nut, and he's just like boom, 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 and he's got ideas and stuff. But I think just his energy and enthusiasm draws people to him.
Sure.
Same thing, and there's a lot of people like that locally that you just they attract people, but for the right reasons. But their heart's in the right spot. They're not sitting there trying to be this like sleaze bag person, and you're like, they're kind of slimy. You're like, no, they actually are a cool dude or genuine in what they're saying.
Right. They believe in what they...
Yeah, and they're just like, they ooze out whatever they want. And
they're genuine people.
Yeah, and those are the people that I'm like, if I see those people, I'm like, whatever it is, I'm just like, beeline, I got to be with that person, because it just, minds connect, and that's good.
You know what? We talk about the future of the North Country and all of that, and we at Coryer Staffing are always going to be positioning ourselves to the best of our ability to sort of be as nimble and effective as time goes on. But the real question mark for me in the next, let's just say, 5-10 years is who is going to be the next Gary Douglas, right? Because Gary Douglas is not going to do that job forever, and he has done nothing short of an amazing job for the North Country, because he assembled a superb team of individuals, and there's I think it was like Bill Owens and Pat Russell, in this small core group of individuals who saw, when the base went away, that the future of the North Country was going north across the border and putting on presentations to Montreal companies or Canadian companies, or at least international companies, that if you want to have some presence in the U.S. market, Plattsburgh is where you should be, right? And this has been going on for 25, 30 years without a whole lot of people knowing that they were actually going up and doing that. And there are very few people who run chambers of commerce who sort of have that vision and direction. And he has, there's been certainly, people might say there have been stumbles along the way, but there have been so many home runs, so many more home runs. It could be Bombardier, it could be Volvo, it could be Norsk Titanium. I don't know the degree to which they had the influence of having Schluter Systems come down across the border, but I know that all of those companies probably pass through the Gary Douglas filter and sphere of influence, and that's why they're here. Who is the next Gary Douglas, and who are the next crack team of individuals who are going to carry that torch and continue to make those strong relationships north of the border?
So this is my thing. So I'm not super. I mean, in the realm of I'm still, I'd say, fairly young in the realm of business and kind of getting into this stuff. I was telling you before about Hometown Cable. One of the ones that came up was Gary Douglas,
right.
1995, 96. Slim and trim Gary Douglas,
right.
Dressed the same. I think he wakes up every day in a three-piece suit. But he was doing interviews, and this was back, and you could tell it was kind of like he was involved, but I think he was new. He's probably in his first 5-6 years, whenever he started. And you kind of watch this, and you could see him do it. And again, it almost felt like the early days. And some of these companies, I told you, like they're not even around here anymore.
Right.
And I didn't recognize any of the people that he was interviewing, which is crazy to think that this was 25 years ago.
Right.
And which just shows how much things change over time. But I don't know, I was 5-6 years old at the time, and so I'm watching this. This is within the week. I'm watching this. They put out a bunch of old videos. I'm like, now I'm like nerding out on the park. The park board meeting of the month, and I'm watching like Mark Berry, and I know Mark a little bit, and some other
Plattsburgh people. Air Base Redevelopment Commission,
and
Park.
And I'm watching all this stuff, and I'm like, this is kind of before my time, but now that I'm older, I can appreciate what they're talking about. This is 25 years ago. So if I had to pick one person locally that I want to get on the podcast, and I'll be honest, never asked the guy because it's Gary Douglas. So this is the thing. Gary Douglas is one of these guys, and I've said this before on the podcast. Joel Wood was here the other day. Joel Wood could be Gary Douglas. He's I don't know, you know Joel?
I love Joel.
Joel's great.
He's superb.
Yeah, he's the best. And so I'm sitting there, I'm telling Joel, I'm like, Gary's this guy that as a kid growing up, he was on the front page of the paper probably 50 days of the year because he's in some event, and you see him on the side, and he looks like this little godfather, and I'm like, who is this Gary guy? Everybody knows Gary. I'm like, I didn't. I was a little kid. And like, now that I've come up the ranks, I still see Gary. And every time I see Gary, he's one of those guys. He's very kind of quiet, doesn't say a lot. Like at least I find, kind of like there, but he's much more, an introvert. Kind of doesn't seem like he's very outspoken. I've talked to Gary twice in my life, and usually it's kind of quiet. There's one time at the Chamber Business Expo, and we were going around, and I was there, and Christy Kennedy was there, and Gary was there. 3-piece suit. It's middle of June. I'm sweating. He's in a 3-piece suit. So, but he always looks
cool as a cucumber.
Yeah. So then I'm sitting there, and I'm giving Christy a T-shirt, like Kavanaugh shirt, and I look over at Gary, and I go, Gary. I said, "Do you want a T-shirt?" He looks at me. He goes, "I'm not really a T-shirt guy." That's all I got out of him. I'm not really a T-shirt guy. And I said, Gary, you're going to be the first guy with a Kavanaugh 3-piece suit. And that's what I told him. And then he kind of did this little chuckle. Never said a word. That was it. And then I left. I'm like, I think it just ruined my shot with Gary. So then the Chamber Award dinner, I show up. I don't even think Gary knows who I am. This is my thought. I show up. He's the first guy to come up and say hi. I don't even think he said anything. He just came up and shook my hand. And then I told him, I said, Gary, I had to rent this damn 3-piece suit, and you still look better than me. And he just rolled out. He's been wearing that since the morning. So those are my 2 times I ever spoke to Gary. So I want to get Gary on because there's a gazillion questions I want to ask this guy.
No, that's a no-brainer.
But he's also one of those guys. I'm like, when you talk about there's a slight starstruck a little bit, local starstruck when I look at something a Gary. I know this sounds crazy.
No, it's intimidating.
But it's kind of weird. But there's people that I've had on here that I'm like. Then a lot of them more, I think, because they're younger and stuff. But then I look at these guys have been doing it for years. In my head, it's the perception that these guys have been doing it for so many years that they're just I'm like, it's almost like this is really the person right here, which is crazy. I know it's crazy because they're like, I don't, but it's like anything
Listen,
else.
I think it's like anybody else. You know, it's intimidating because of who they are and what they've done, and you want to pick their brain, and you don't know what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. But the truth of the matter is, he gets up every morning and puts his 3-piece suits on, just like you and I get dressed.
I mean, that's different. I get dressed, yeah, but it's the idea. Like, I'm just fascinated by now really knowing, not really knowing, but starting to know stuff. Where he started back in the early 90s to now, there's been a lot of up and downs in the last 30 years. I mean, between the locally base closing, 9/11, the recession, a lot of these things with these kind of this wave effect, and we're stronger now, I think, than we were 30 years ago. Like, and maybe even at the prime better than we are now. And you look at this, and I would say I would say Gary's kind of like the general up on the horse kind of guy leading the charge, but it's like, to see this, like, there's so many questions I want to ask that man that, like, and I can't. I should be able to get him on. I'm like slowly infiltrating the chamber. So
right.
I'm getting a couple of them on, and I'm sure Gary will have no problem coming on. But it's the thing though. Do
you know what you have to get on? You should get on Gary Douglas, and you should get Herb Carpenter.
See, Herb's another one. I know the name, but I don't know him.
Yeah, it's a
strictly business guy, right?
Yeah, but it's Strictly Business is sort of like.
But see, this is how I know him from.
I know. Yeah, but Strictly Business is a passion project, But he was front and center for everything that went on at the base. He used to be the chief of police in Plattsburgh earlier in his career. He's been around Plattsburgh. He knows everything that's ever happened in the North Country. He started Strictly Business and the Northeast Group. And then when Mike joined, he sort of really expanded the whole warehousing and logistics side of that business. So that's blown up. Now Mike has taken over. Either you get
Mike from Northeast Printing,
Mike Carpenter,
or North was it? They did the sport. That same Mike, right?
Mike Carpenter. Yeah, it's his son.
But see, I don't know. I know of him, but don't really know him.
He's another one. Like, do you know what you and I should do? You have this podcast here, right? But you and I should break off and have. And if we could even have either you and I interviewing people and having a conversation, or like you and I and maybe one other person. But we should have like a group podcast where we regularly talk, and maybe we bring in people that we know, and then you're not carrying all the water, I'm not carrying all the water. We can both sort of go back and forth.
I'm basically the guy who just hits play and just says, I'm just going to be a fly on the wall. Because this is the thing. Like, I like listening to people, but there's so many people locally that have done crazy things, like from, at least in my time, that are still relevant people. Like, they're not retired. They're not done. They're not like, hey, this is no offense. I mean, there's people I want to talk to that did a lot of stuff probably in the 70s and 80s that are, they've been retired for a while now, but a lot of these guys are still active day to day. Yeah. But they have 30 plus 40 years of experience and knowledge, and like, oh yeah, so this is what happened with the base. Where when I was talking to when Matt Boyer came on, he was new at the time, but he was talking about him and Mark Berry and the stuff that, he got in the CDC kind of as the base was like, about to fizz out, and little Mark and and this stuff blows my mind. Like, it's like the history of the North Country, right? That I'm like in it now, but my knowledge of the history is kind of like a kid being like, I'm aware of that person.
Art Spiegel would be a wild interview if we could land that.
I met Art before, but I don't know if Art would really know who I am.
Matt and Casey's dad, right?
Yes, I know Matt a little more than, I don't know if I really know Casey, but I know Matt.
Casey's great. Matt's great too. I don't know their brother Josh as well, but he's very, very friendly and nice whenever I've had conversations with him. And I haven't had a bunch of conversations with their dad, but he's just a North Country business icon. Somebody who grew a business on his own. Sold that business. It's really unfortunate that the Titheringtons aren't around. But even interviewing the old man, Jeff Titherington, it would be really fascinating. And even if you get his son, unfortunately, obviously Gary and Paul passed away. But Jeff Jr., if you could get him on the podcast, of course he's in Florida more often than he's in the North Country. But there are some people in and around our region that would be fascinating to have conversations with.
A lot of these guys, like people, I've heard of every single one of the people you've said. But again, do I know any of them? Not really. And that's the thing. It's like a lot of it is, for me, it's almost like it's a research because I get to learn it. Right. But then two, it's kind of, I want to hear the stories, and I want to hear like where, because a lot of it, like history repeats itself. Like that's a common theme, throughout. So it's like when you start seeing stuff they went up against and where their experiences to where we're going. And I want to pick like someone like Gary, who I think has a very clear vision of where he wants us to go. And then obviously I think just naturally, just time and energy, just like, I just kind of want to relax and like pass the baton. But I know Gary's going to have it, he's just going to be a guy throughout his entire life that's going to have still a presence in the community. And even if it's more of a consultation type thing, I mean, I think Gary's going to carry a lot of weight from now to whenever he's just completely like, don't bother me. You're like, don't know if whatever happened, So, yeah, I don't know. I got some good stuff. I gotta reach out to some of these people, but we don't want to. I would be remiss if I said that we had a good kickoff to a lot of my list by having Dave Coryer back on for a second time. I mean, this is kind of the same breath right here. I don't want to. I want to discount this. And so, Dave, I appreciate you coming back on. I got a couple minutes here, but anything else you want to say? We'll have you back on again. We might do a dual thing. Who knows?
Yeah, I would love. I think the podcast format is really great. I've wanted to do my own for a while. I've kicked it around for a long time. It's fun having somebody to talk to and get more comfortable with time. It would almost be arguably easier to do with somebody and to sort of say, hey, we're going to do a North Country podcast where we interview all kinds of people. We're going to talk. And I know that you've been doing it for a while, but even expanding upon that. And even if you just sort of had it's kind of fun about the same two people talking, because there's a lot of podcasts that I listen to that are just that. There are two people who talk where you're talking about what's going on, what's happening around us, instead of having it be so centric on who are you and who am I, like what's happening here. So what's going on in downtown, the DRI, what's going, let's. So
there's yes, and that's how this usually evolves. So like when you came on the first time, it was me being like I knew of you. I never met you. That's the first time I think I met you.
Right.
It was like I knew of you. And I'm like, I'd like... And I think I got roped in because I was trying to get Meg on. And Meg, at the time. And it was like this whole thing. But then it was kind of, okay, who are you guys? What are you guys up to? With the RAMP program, I did some research. I knew some stuff, obviously, through just community and social media. And then it got to the point where we've had conversations between... I mean, that was over a year ago now, I think.
It was.
Which seems crazy because I'm getting people on. I'm like, yeah, it was like a couple months ago,
right?
Well,
COVID has sort of thrown in the entire schedule on our brains.
The fact that we are in mid-November right now blows my mind of 2020. This is the fastest. I call this like the fastest, slowest year ever because it's just like it's gone in a blur. I don't know. It seems very fast. But this one I think was more laid back. We've talked multiple times between then and now. So it's like you start to know the people. Like I have some people. Jared Burns came on, good friend of mine.
I think he's great.
Yeah, we hit the play button, and I don't even know what we talked about. We were mid-sentence. I'm like, do you want to just start this? He goes, yeah, sure. So I just hit it. I'm like,
right.
And I'm
it's
like,
okay, Joe Rogan podcast. Yeah, I'm like, are we rolling?
I mean, yeah, I'm like, I guess but people don't know. Like, we talked an hour before we even started the camera. Started this. So it's like, there's a lot of it is as you get more people on. That's why I like having people repeat because I find I like the interview style where I interview people. But I like just kind of, like I said, shooting the breeze with some friends and just kind of talking about whatever. Or it could be, I talk about the golf tournament, but it could be anything. Like you said, it could be the DRI. It could be something going on. Or it could be just like, hey, I ran over the pothole on this hole. Did you see that? Or I don't know, whatever.
Right, we have a new mayor starting. What's our thoughts around that? What's our thoughts with the North Country? What's our thoughts on...
I had both mayor candidates on here.
Yeah,
and
I saw that. That's
both.
Great.
Both great guys, both very good with their time. I was one. I'm not a big political guy. I vote. I do all that and stuff. I have views, and I usually kind of keep them to myself. But the biggest race that I was most interested in was one I didn't even vote in. I couldn't vote in it. I don't live in the city, but it was the mayor race. And I just talking to both guys and kind of knowing a little bit about the city, not great, but aware enough about kind of the some of the challenges they're facing right now. I just figured that no matter what, one of the two gentlemen was going to be at least bring a little bit of energy and maybe a new perspective and a little jolt that for the area. So I was really looking forward to hearing who won it, even though it was kind of delayed, right? Because they didn't figure out who won until was it the Wednesday the following week?
It's like every election in the country. They had to count the mail-in ballots the week after.
And it was like it was funny was I actually saw both guys the day of without planning it. Ran into both of them. When I didn't really run into Chris, but I went to all of Ridley's, Aleka's, all Ridley's. Like they were doing a co-thing, which I think it's great, by the way. That was a cool thing they're doing. So we went. I was with me and a friend went there. We went to Aleka's for lunch. We ended up we're middle of the day. I'm kind of punting it. I always like election days, almost like a mini holiday. I guess it is a holiday, but I just I kind of zone out. For some reason I find I'm very not motivated to do much work on election day, where I do some stuff and then I kind of want to just chill because everybody's kind of in the buzz of that. It's kind of one of those weird days. So we ended up going. We're like, do you want to get sangria? Let's have sangria. So we drank sangria. Ran into Scott. He was doing his NBC interview or whatever. So let's talk to him a little bit when I walked in. And then I looked out the window and Chris comes rolling in 15 minutes later and does his interview. And I'm this is kind of we're right in the mirror band. I mean, not that anything was going on, but it was just funny to see both guys that day. But I just figured neither of them slept. I told Scott, I said something about they said something about, are you going to stay up or whatever? And he said some comment. I said, I guarantee you about 4 hours you can be in the same spot, but probably the other way. Because he was standing straight up in the middle of Ridley's. I'm like, this, depending how today goes, either way, you're probably, like I said, it'd be nice to have a drink tonight and relax. But
it was sort of we had two great candidates. My wife grew up next door to Scott and his family, since they were children. So they're friends. They've been kind to us. It was easy to support him. But honestly, it wasn't supporting one wasn't really supporting the other. It was just sort of...
I found that talking to both guys and talking to other people, there wasn't one person, which was refreshing to see in politics. There wasn't one person when they asked me about the interviews, or asked me well, who would you vote for? And I'm like, honestly, they're both, I think, good. I think no matter, I don't think you're going to go wrong with really either guy. And everybody I talked to was kind of the same thing. They're like, yeah, I'm going to vote for this one, but honestly, I care less if that he won. Right. I think he'd be good.
Scott Beebe spent how many years in the city police force? I mean, he knows that lay of the land, and I think those relationships he could have really leveraged those relationships and sort of been a good candidate. I think it didn't go his way.
Yeah,
so here we are.
And I wouldn't be surprised knowing Scott too. And I don't know how this all works. I don't know the dynamic between Chris and Scott. Off camera and stuff, but. I could see Scott still offering, thoughts or efforts and stuff. Because
counsel.
Because I think at the end of the day, Scott's still a Plattsburgh guy, and he wants, what's best for the community. And I don't think it's the end of Scott. I think Scott's one that, we'll see how Chris does. You never know. I mean, it's every 4 years. I wouldn't be surprised if Scott throws his hat in the ring again. If it gets to that point, or he might just be like, honestly, Chris is doing a great job, and I'll wait 8 years, let him get done, and then I'll go in. And maybe that's how it works. Because so it's cool. Like I said, it was refreshing to see. I thought a pretty. Clean campaign, which was nice. I mean, both guys were, I think, very amicable in everything they did and respectful. And I didn't see anybody bad-mouthing either of them.
They talked about what they were going to do, not what the other person wasn't going to do, which I thought was refreshing.
Exactly. Right. And it's nice when I was doing a conversation with both of them, because people always ask, I'm like, well, if I get a politician on here, it's not to talk real politics. It's I want to highlight the person, and I want to say, what's your plans? What's your goals? I'm like, I'm not going to argue with anybody in politics. I'm like, what do you want to do? And how are you going to make it happen? And what's your vision? And tying that all in and just letting the person speak in a long form context that they can really expand off of, and it's not just sound bites. It's here's an hour and 40 minutes of both guys.
It's almost intimidating, I imagine, for politicians, because you talk for too long and you sort of talk yourself.
Some of them always ask me, what are you going to ask? I'm like, just show up. It's be fun. I'm not going to give you any what do you right? You kind of know what's coming, but I'm not. It's not. It's fun. You're just going to just
you saying, what are you going to say?
Yeah, what are you going to say? I honestly don't know. I have ideas. Nick came in, she gave me some of your stuff here, and I kind of glanced through it. I'm like, honestly, if I get really stumped, I'll look at it. I haven't looked at it once. We're fine. So, if anything's a note taker, so it's good. Dave, I appreciate you coming on. This is always fun. We actually did a decent length here, considering
I think it's great.
We chit chatted a little bit before, so it was fun. We'll do it again.
Thank you so much.
Sounds good. All right, that is episode 105 with the great Dave Coryer. Thanks for listening to the Galen Trombley Show. If you want to reach me, you can go on Facebook at Galen Trombley, on Instagram at Galen Trombley, and on YouTube at Galen Trombley. The spelling, GaelanTrombley.